The massive alien ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The hull gleamed like polished silver, stretching for miles in every direction. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Ambassador Zixthara stood on the bridge of the ship called Convergence. Her crystalline body caught the light from nearby stars and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. She had done this many times before. First contact was her specialty. In her long career, she had brought 47 different species into the Galactic Council's embrace. Around her stood representatives from 12 other alien races. There was Commander Thok, a 7-foot-tall creature covered in thick gray skin and bone spikes. His people, the Kreg, were the Council's military arm. Beside him floated Merchant Zilka, her translucent body swimming through the air like a jellyfish. The Zetar controlled most trade routes in this part of the galaxy. "Standard approach, Ambassador?" asked Commander Thok. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Zixthara nodded. "Of course. We offer them the usual package: technology, protection, trade agreements. They will be grateful for our guidance." She had brought the complete first contact kit. Advanced medical technology that would cure their diseases, energy sources that would end their resource problems, protection from the dangerous creatures that prowled the dark spaces between stars. In exchange, the humans would join the Council as junior members. They would contribute their unique skills and knowledge to the greater galactic community. It was a fair deal. It was always a fair deal. The communications officer, a thin blue creature with too many arms, looked up from his console. "Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission from the third planet." "Excellent." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life. Instead of the confused, frightened faces Zixthara expected to see, there was only text. Worse, the text was written in perfect galactic standard, the common language used by all Council species. The message was short. "We decline to negotiate. Please leave our system within 72 hours. Silence filled the bridge. Commander Thok's bone spikes rattled as he shifted uncomfortably. Merchant Zilka's body pulsed with confused colors. Even the philosophical ethereals, who rarely showed emotion, seemed disturbed. "There must be some mistake," Zixthara said finally. "Run a translation check." Perhaps they misunderstood. The communications officer's many hands danced over his controls. "No error, Ambassador." The message was sent in perfect galactic standard. "Grammar is correct. Meaning is clear." "How do they know our language?" asked Commander Thok. "That's impossible," said Merchant Zilka. "We have had no contact with this species before today." Zixthara felt something she had never experienced in 50,000 years of diplomatic service: confusion. In all her time bringing new species into the Council, none had ever refused to negotiate. Some were hostile at first, some were afraid, some were excited, but they all wanted to talk. "Send another message," she ordered. "Tell them we come in peace. Explain the benefits of Council membership. Offer them medical technology to cure their diseases." The reply came back within minutes. "We are aware of your purposes. We decline all offers. Please leave our system within 72 hours. Commander Thok's hand moved to his weapon. "Perhaps they need a demonstration of our power." "No," Zixthara said quickly. "That is not how we do things. We are diplomats, not conquerors." But privately, she was beginning to worry. The humans' responses suggested they knew more about the Council than they should. How was that possible? This was supposed to be their first contact with galactic civilization. She ordered her science team to scan the human homeworld. What they found made her crystalline form dim with shock. The planet showed signs of advanced technology, not primitive like most newly discovered worlds, but sophisticated. Their cities gleamed with metal and glass. Strange energy signatures suggested they had already developed faster than light travel. "How long have they been watching us?" she whispered to herself. The answer came from an unexpected source. A small human ship appeared near their position, moving too fast and too quietly. It should not have been possible to approach the convergence without being detected. Another message arrived. "We have been observing your civilization for 23 years. We have studied your history, your methods, and your true purposes. We choose not to participate. This is our final warning. Leave our system now." Zixthara felt her confidence crack like thin ice. The humans had been watching them. They knew about the Council's true nature. They understood what joining really meant. And they were rejecting it anyway. "Ambassador," the communications officer said nervously, "we are detecting multiple human ships throughout the system. They appear to have been there all along, but their stealth technology is unlike anything in our databases." "How many ships?" she asked. "Unknown. Our sensors cannot penetrate their cloaking systems." For the first time in her long career, Ambassador Zixthara faced a species that had said no to the Galactic Council. Not because they were ignorant or afraid, but because they understood exactly what they were rejecting. She looked at the countdown timer on her screen, 71 hours and 38 minutes remaining. What would happen when the time ran out? She was no longer sure. She wanted to find out. 23 years earlier, Dr. Elena Vasquez had been a young radio astronomer working the night shift at the Arecibo Observatory. She was scanning the deep space frequencies, looking for signs of intelligent life, when her equipment picked up something that changed everything. At first, it looked like background noise, random static from distant stars. But Elena was good at her job, and she noticed patterns that others might have missed. The static had structure. It had meaning. It was a conversation between two alien civilizations discussing trade routes and military positions. Elena sat in her small office, staring at the translation software she had written. The aliens were talking about something called the Galactic Council. They mentioned dozens of different species, all working together under one government. They talked about expansion, about bringing new worlds into their alliance. They also talked about resistance and the need to crush it quickly. Elena made a choice that night that would define humanity's future. Instead of announcing her discovery to the world, she picked up her secure phone and called her old college roommate, who now worked for the military. "Sarah," Elena said when Captain Sarah Chen answered, "I need you to come to Puerto Rico immediately. And bring people who can keep secrets." 3 days later, Elena found herself in a windowless room in the basement of the Pentagon. Around the table sat representatives from every major government on Earth. The President of the United States, the Premier of China, the leaders of Russia, India, and the European Union. They had all dropped everything to hear what she had discovered. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena began, "we are not alone, and we are in great danger." She played the alien transmissions she had recorded. Even through the translation software, the meaning was clear. There was a vast galactic civilization out there, and it was expanding toward Earth. General Morrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "Based on their expansion patterns, they will reach our system within 20 to 25 years, Elena said. "But here's the thing. I don't think they know we exist yet." "That gives us time," said the Chinese premier. "Time to prepare." "Prepare for what?" asked the president. "We can't fight a galactic empire." Elena smiled grimly. "No, but we can learn about them. We can watch them. We can understand how they operate before they get here." That was the birth of Project Silent Observer. Within 6 months, every major space agency on Earth was secretly working together. They developed new technologies in hidden laboratories. They built invisible probes using experimental cloaking systems. They launched spy satellites that could hide in the darkness between stars. For 23 years, humanity watched the Galactic Council. They learned the alien languages. They studied their cultures. They mapped their territory and counted their ships. Most importantly, they learned how the Council really operated. What they discovered was terrifying. Dr. Vasquez, now the director of Silent Observer, stood before the same world leaders 20 years later. Her hair had gone gray, but her eyes burned with the same intensity. The Galactic Council is not what it pretends to be, she told them. They call themselves a peaceful alliance, but they are conquerors. Every species that joins them loses its independence within a generation. She showed them recordings taken by their spy probes. Worlds that had once been vibrant and unique, now turned into gray industrial centers. Species that had once been proud and independent, now serving as workers in council factories. They have a process, Elena explained. First, they offer advanced technology and protection from enemies. The new species is grateful and eager to join. Then, slowly, the council takes control. They say it's for efficiency. They relocate the best minds to council research centers. They standardize education systems. They gradually replace local governments with council administrators. Within 50 years, the original culture is gone. The species still exists, but it serves the council's needs, not its own. President Williams, the newest American leader, raised her hand. What about resistance? Surely some species have fought back. Elena's expression darkened. They tried. We've observed 3 rebellion attempts in the last decade. The Council doesn't destroy the rebels outright. That would look bad. Instead, they create problems. Food shortages, resource conflicts with neighboring systems, pirates attacking trade ships. The rebellious worlds are forced to ask for help. And the Council graciously provides it, said the Chinese premier, understanding immediately. Exactly. In exchange for protection and aid, the rebels give up more independence. It's a trap that closes slowly, but it always closes. General Morrison studied the tactical displays Elena had prepared. What about their military capabilities? Overwhelming, but predictable. Every council species fights the same way now. They use the same weapons, the same tactics, the same strategies. It makes them powerful against primitive civilizations, but it also makes them vulnerable to unexpected approaches. So what do you recommend? Asked President Williams. Elena looked around the room at the leaders of humanity. We reject their offer. We stay independent. And we prepare for the consequences. Lever decleating toward. What of the cation to leversation? We stay to dispension. What of the spension? We really h the declam. We would have the peace a lot of the 20. They won't accept rejection, warned the Russian president. No, they won't. But by the time they arrive, we'll have had 25 years to prepare. We've been using their own technologies against them, reverse engineering everything we could steal or copy. We've developed weapons and defenses they've never seen before. She activated a holographic display showing the solar system. Dozens of points of light appeared, scattered throughout space. These are our hidden defense platforms, cloaked weapons stations, stealth ships, mobile fortresses. The Council has never faced an enemy that was ready for them. They've never fought a species that understood their true nature from the beginning. General Morrison smiled for the first time in the meeting. So, when they arrive, expecting to find primitive humans eager for their protection, they'll find humans who have been watching them for decades, humans who know exactly what they're really offering, and humans who choose to say no. Elena turned off the display and faced the assembled leaders. The question is, are you ready to bet humanity's future on our independence? The vote was unanimous. Ambassador Zixthara had been alive for over 3,000 years. In that time, she had seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. She had witnessed supernovas and the birth of new stars. She had negotiated peace treaties that ended wars lasting centuries. But she had never been more confused than she was right now. Run the scenario again, she told her staff for the 15th time. Her aide, A nervous creature that looked like a walking plant activated the holographic display. Standard First Contact Protocol. Scenario 4-7 Alpha. Primitive species discovers galactic civilization. Initial hostility due to fear. The display showed the expected responses. First, surprise and fear. Then curiosity. Then eager acceptance of council guidance. It was a pattern that had repeated itself across the galaxy for 50,000 years. But they're not following the pattern, complained Merchant Zilka. Her jellyfish-like body pulsed with frustrated colors. They know our language. They understand our offer. They still say no. Commander Thok paced back and forth across the bridge, his heavy footsteps making the deck plates ring. In my experience, species that refuse council membership are usually conquered by their neighbors within a decade. They should be begging for our protection. Perhaps they don't understand the dangers, suggested the ethereal representative. The floating, ghost-like being rarely spoke, so everyone listened when it did. Their isolation may have made them naive. Zixthara shook her head. No. Their responses are too informed. They know exactly what they're rejecting. She had tried everything in her diplomatic toolkit. Economic incentives that would make the humans the richest species in their sector. Technology that would extend their lifespans and cure their diseases. Cultural exchange programs that would expand their understanding of the universe. The humans had responded to each offer the same way. We have observed your community. We decline membership. Apps. What does that mean? Demanded Commander Thok. How can they have observed our community? The answer came from the ship's science officer. A thin blue creature with compound eyes. Ambassador, I believe I may have found something disturbing. The main screen lit up with sensor readings from across the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of human ships and installations. These are just the ones we can detect, the science officer explained. Based on gravimetric shadows and energy signatures, I estimate there are at least 3 times as many vessels using stealth technology we cannot penetrate. Andament, how is that possible? Asked Zixthara. Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy. They appear to be using a form of space-time manipulation to bend sensor beams around their hulls. The technology is beyond anything in our databases. Commander Thok stopped pacing. You're telling me these primitives have technology we don't understand? They're not primitives, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see historian Kethvar, an ancient being that rarely left his archives. I've been researching their species. They're remarkably adaptable. Their technological development has accelerated dramatically in the last century. All species experience rapid growth before first contact, said Merchant Zilka dismissively. Not like this, Kethvar insisted. He activated his own display. Look at their development curve. They went from primitive flying machines to faster-than-light travel in less than 100 of their years. That's impossible without outside guidance. Very well. The Seeing Discrown. A terrible thought occurred to Zixthara. Show me our expansion schedule for this sector. The display changed to show Council exploration routes. A red line marked the planned approach to the human system. Several other lines showed previous expeditions to nearby stars. They've been watching us, she whispered. Every time we contacted a species in this region, they were learning about us. They've had decades to study our methods. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't rejected council membership out of ignorance or fear. They had made an informed decision based on years of observation. What exactly did they see? Asked the ethereal representative. Zixthara pulled up records of recent first contacts in the region. The Zelani, brought into the council 15 years ago. The Morphak, who joined 12 years ago. The Quenth, integrated just 8 years ago. All successful integrations, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Were they? Asked historian Kethvar quietly. Look at them now. The display showed the current status of those species. The Zelani homeworld had been converted into a mining operation. Most of their population had been relocated to other worlds, where they worked in council industries. Their unique art and music had been replaced with standardized council culture. The Morphak were worse off. Their warrior traditions had been declared incompatible with galactic peace. Their weapons had been confiscated. Their military leaders had been sent to re-education centers. They were now a client species, entirely dependent on council protection. The Quenth had kept more of their culture, but only because it was useful to the council. Their natural telepathic abilities made them excellent communications officers. Most young Quenth were recruited away from their homeworld before they reached adulthood. This is what the humans saw, Zeke-Thara realized. This is what they're rejecting. Commander Thok's bone spikes rattled with anger. They don't understand. We brought peace to this galaxy. We ended the wars that destroyed entire star systems. Did we? Asked historian Kethvar. Or did we simply replace many small conflicts with one large system of control? You're questioning the Council's methods? Merchant, Zilka's body flashed warning colors. I'm trying to understand why an entire species would choose independence over membership. In 50,000 years, this has never happened. Zeke-Thara felt a crack in her certainty. Everything she had believed about the Council's mission was based on the assumption that membership was always better than independence. Every species they had contacted had agreed. Every integration had been successful. But now, she was seeing those integrations through human eyes. Species that had once been diverse and unique, now homogenized into standard council citizens. Worlds that had once been independent, now serving the greater galactic community. It was still good, she told herself. The galaxy was peaceful. Resources were shared efficiently. Scientific knowledge advanced rapidly. But something had been lost. Something the humans were determined to keep. Ambassador. The communications officer interrupted her thoughts. We're receiving another transmission from the humans. Put it on screen. This time, there was an image along with the text. A middle-aged human woman with graying hair and determined eyes looked directly into the camera. I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, speaking for the people of Earth, she said in perfect galactic standard. We know who you are. We know what you offer. We know what you really want. And we choose to remain independent. We are not your enemies. We will trade fairly with any species that approaches us honestly. We will share knowledge with those who prove trustworthy. But we will never surrender our independence for the illusion of security. The message ended with a simple countdown. 47 hours, 23 minutes remaining. Zeke-Thara stared at the blank screen, wondering for the first time in her long career if the Council's way was the only way. And what would happen when the countdown reached 0? With 12 hours left on the countdown, Ambassador Zeke-Thara made one final attempt at negotiation. She had to try something different. Something that might break through humanity's stubborn refusal to see reason. Dr. Vasquez, she said, addressing her message directly to the human scientist who seemed to speak for Earth. I request a face-to-face meeting. There are things you need to know. Dangerous things that threaten all life in this galaxy. To her surprise, the humans agreed. A small shuttle launched from Earth, moving with the same impossible stealth technology that had hidden their fleet. It docked with the Convergence without triggering a single security alert. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped onto the alien ship, wearing a simple gray uniform and a confident expression. She was smaller than Zeke-Thara had expected, but her presence filled the room. 2 human guards flanked her, their weapons strange and somehow unsettling. Ambassador, Elena said with a polite nod. You said there were things we needed to know. Zeke-Thara gestured to the conference room she had prepared. Please, sit. What I'm about to show you changes everything. Elena took a seat across from the alien diplomat. Her guards remained standing, alert but not threatening. I'm listening. The room's lights dimmed, and a holographic display activated. It showed a map of the galaxy, with Council territory marked in blue. But there were other colors too. Red zones along the outer rim, marked with symbols that Elena didn't recognize. These are the devourers, Zixthara said quietly. An ancient enemy that has plagued this galaxy for millions of years. They consume entire worlds, leaving nothing behind but empty space. The display zoomed in on the red zones. Elena could see the aftermath of devourer attacks. Solar systems with missing planets. Star systems where the stars themselves had been extinguished. The Galactic Council was formed to fight this threat, Zixthara continued. Everything we do, every species we integrate, every military force we build, it's all to hold the line against the devourers. Elena studied the images carefully. How long have you been fighting them? 50,000 years. We've managed to contain them, but barely. They're patient, intelligent, and utterly ruthless. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They simply consume. The ambassador changed the display to show recent battle reports. They're pushing forward again. Our defenses are stretched thin. We need every available resource, every possible ally. Zixthara leaned forward, her crystalline features reflecting the holographic images. This is why council membership isn't optional, Dr. Vasquez. Alone, you cannot survive what's coming. No species can. Elena was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the information. Then, she smiled. And something about that expression made Zixthara uncomfortable. We know about the devourers, Elena said simply. That's impossible. This information is classified at the highest levels. We've been tracking them for 15 years. Elena continued. Our long-range probes detected their movement patterns. We've observed their attacks. We've studied their technology. Zixthara felt her certainty crumbling. If you know about the threat, why do you refuse our protection? Because we also know why you're losing. Elena stood and activated her own holographic device. The images it displayed made everyone in the room step back in shock. These are devourer ships, Elena said, pointing to sleek, organic-looking vessels. Notice how they move. Their tactics. Their coordination. She switched to recordings of Council fleet engagements. Now, look at your forces. Every species fights the same way. Uses the same formations. Employs the same strategies. You've made yourselves predictable. Standardization creates efficiency, Zixthara protested. Standardization creates vulnerability, Elena corrected. The devourers have been studying your methods for 50,000 years. They know exactly how you'll respond to any situation. She showed more battle footage. Watch this engagement near the Vega system. The devourers anticipated every council tactic. They were already moving to counter your fleet strategy before you even arrived. Zixthara stared at the recordings. She had seen these battles before, but she had never noticed the patterns Elena was pointing out. You've created a galaxy-wide monoculture, Elena explained. Every species thinks the same way, fights the same way, responds to threats the same way. It makes you efficient, but it also makes you predictable, and predictable enemies are easy to defeat. What are you suggesting? Zixthara asked. Elena smiled again, and this time it was almost predatory. Diversity. Chaos. Unpredictability. The very things your council works to eliminate. She activated another display, showing human military formations. They were unlike anything in council databases. Ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but somehow coordinated. Weapons fired in sequences that defied conventional tactical doctrine. We've developed our strategies by studying both sides of this war, Elena said. We know how the council fights. We know how the devourers respond. And we've created something new. The door to the conference room opened, and another human entered. This one wore a military uniform with captain's insignia. Ambassador Zix Thara, Elena said. Meet Captain Sarah Chen, commander of Earth's Space Defense Forces. Captain Chen nodded politely. Ambassador, I understand you're concerned about our ability to defend ourselves. The devourers will come here eventually, Zix Thara said. When they do, your independence won't matter. You'll all be dead. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But we won't go down the same way everyone else has. She activated her own display device. 3 days ago, a devourer scout force entered the outer edge of our system. 12 ships, running a standard reconnaissance pattern. The display showed the battle. Zix Thara watched in amazement as human ships seemed to appear from nowhere, attacking the devourers with weapons that bent space and time. The alien scouts, who had never been defeated in direct combat, were destroyed within minutes. How? Zix Thara whispered. We didn't fight them the way they expected, Sarah explained. We used tactics they'd never seen before. Weapons they didn't understand. Strategies that made no sense according to council doctrine. Elena leaned back in her chair. This is what you're really afraid of, isn't it? Not that we'll be destroyed by the devourers, but that we might actually beat them. And if we can win without joining the council, what does that say about your 50,000 years of failure? Zix Thara felt something she had never experienced before. Doubt. Everything the council represented, everything she had dedicated her life to, was based on the assumption that unity was the only path to survival. But the humans were offering a different path. Independence. Diversity. The right to choose their own destiny, even if that choice led to destruction. What will you do if more devourers come? She asked. We'll fight them, Sarah said simply, and we'll win or lose on our own terms. Elena stood to leave. The countdown has 4 hours remaining, Ambassador. When it reaches 0, we expect you to honor your word and leave our system. As the humans departed, Zix Thara stared at the tactical displays still floating in the air. For the first time in her long life, she wondered if the Galactic Council might be wrong. And if they were wrong about this, what else had they been wrong about? 6 months after the Convergence had departed from human space, Ambassador Zix Thara found herself in a place she never expected to be. A human space station, orbiting a moon, at the edge of Earth's solar system. The station was unlike anything in Council space. Where Council architecture was standardized and efficient, this place was chaotic and alive. Different sections had been built using various technologies, some human, some clearly alien. Beings from dozens of species worked side by side in the corridors. Zix Thara was no longer an official council ambassador. After her report on the human encounter, she had been recalled to the capital for re-evaluation of diplomatic methods. Instead of returning, she had requested asylum from Earth's government. They had welcomed her with surprising warmth. Elena, she said, greeting Dr. Vasquez in the station's observation deck. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Elena turned from the large window where she had been watching ships come and go. The variety was stunning. Sleek human vessels worked alongside converted council ships and completely alien designs that Zix Thara didn't recognize. Zix, Elena replied, using the shortened name the human had adopted for her friend. You look troubled. The council has issued a formal declaration, Zix Thara said, handing over a crystalline data tablet. They're calling human independence a threat to galactic peace. They've authorized military action to bring Earth into compliance. Elena read the declaration without apparent concern. When? Soon. Commander Thok is assembling a fleet of 500 ships, the largest council force ever gathered, for a single operation. That should be interesting, Elena said mildly. Zix Thara stared at her human friend. Elena, you don't understand. 500 ships, heavy cruisers and battle stations. They're not coming to negotiate anymore. Quote, Elena smiled and gestured toward the window. Zixthara pressed her face to the transparent aluminum and truly looked at what was happening around the station. What she had taken for normal traffic was actually a massive military buildup. Ships were arriving from every direction, but they weren't all human. "Is that a Morphak battlecruiser?" she gasped. "3 of them, actually," Elena confirmed. "Plus 2 Zilani science vessels, a Quenth telepathic coordination ship, and representatives from 17 other species that have decided independence. Might be worth trying. But how? The Council controls their governments, their militaries, their resources. Governments can be changed," Elena said simply. "The Morphak Revolution succeeded 2 months ago. They overthrew their council-appointed administrators and reclaimed their homeworld. The Zilani followed a week later. The others have been quietly building resistance movements for years, waiting for someone to show them it was possible." Zixthara watched as a ship she had never seen before docked with the station. It was massive, bristling with weapons that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. "What is that?" "That," Elena said proudly, "is the first ship built by the Independent Alliance. Human design, Morphak weapons, Zilani shields, Quenth navigation systems. It's everything the Council fears most." "What do you mean?" "Cooperation without assimilation. Different species working together while keeping their unique abilities and perspectives. We're not trying to create a galactic monoculture. We're celebrating diversity." Oh. Through the station's corridors, Zixthara could hear the sounds of that diversity. Morphak war chants, mixing with Zilani, mathematical songs. Human laughter blending with the musical tones of species she was only beginning to recognize. "The Council will never accept this," Zixthara warned. "They'll fight to maintain control." "We know," said a familiar voice behind them. Captain Sarah Chen approached, now wearing the insignia of an admiral. "That's why we're not giving them a choice." Sarah activated a holographic display that filled the observation deck. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, but not as Zixthara had ever seen it before. The neat blue zones of Council control were shot through with green areas marking independent worlds. The red devourer zones were smaller, pushed back by new defensive positions. 67 worlds have declared independence in the past 6 months, Sarah explained. The Council is losing control of entire sectors. More importantly, Elena added, we're winning against the devourers. She changed the display to show recent battle reports. Independent fleets were engaging devourer forces across multiple fronts, using the same unpredictable tactics that had worked in the Sol system. The ancient enemy, accustomed to fighting predictable Council forces, was struggling against the chaotic strategies of free species. The Quenth have developed new telepathic jamming techniques, Elena continued. The Morphak created weapons that exploit weaknesses in devourer armor. The Zilani found ways to track their movements through hyperspace. Every species contributes something unique. And the humans? Zixthara asked. Sarah grinned. We contribute the crazy idea that it might actually work. An alarm chimed softly, and a young human officer approached Admiral Chen. Ma'am, long-range sensors are detecting hyperspace distortions. Council fleet, inbound. How many ships? Sarah asked. 512, Admiral. Battle formation. They'll be here in 6 hours. Zixthara felt her crystalline form grow cold. But Elena was smiling. Sarah, signal all ships. Operation Freedom Dance is now active. The space around the station began to change. Ships that had appeared to be parked casually suddenly moved into complex formations. New vessels seemed to materialize from empty space as their cloaking systems deactivated. The small fleet Zixthara had observed became a massive armada of over 1,000 ships. How? She whispered. We've had 6 months to prepare, Sarah explained. Every ship that joined us brought friends. Every species that chose independence inspired others. And every victory against the devourers proved that the Council's way isn't the only way. Elena placed a gentle hand on Zixthara's shoulder. This isn't about humans anymore. It's about the right of every species to choose its own path. The right to be different. The right to succeed or fail on their own terms. As they watched, the independent fleet began to move. Not in the orderly formations favored by Council doctrine, but in fluid, organic patterns that seemed almost alive. Ships from different species moved in perfect harmony despite using completely different technologies and tactics. "What will you tell Commander Thok when he arrives?" Zixthara asked. Elena's smile became fierce. "We'll tell him what we told you 6 months ago. Independence is not negotiable. Freedom is not a bargaining chip." She looked out at the assembled fleet, representing dozens of species that had chosen uncertainty over security, chaos over order, freedom over peace. If the Council wants to remain relevant in this galaxy, they'll have to learn to treat other species as equals, not subjects. If they can't do that, then they'll discover that their 50,000 years of control are coming to an end. The countdown to the Council fleet's arrival showed 5 hours and 37 minutes. But for the first time since the Convergence had arrived at Earth, Zixthara was not afraid of what would happen when the time ran out. The galaxy was changing. And perhaps, she thought, as she watched the independent fleet prepare for battle, it was changing for the better. In the distance, stars that had shone the same way for millennia seemed to burn a little brighter, as if the universe itself approved of what was happening here. Freedom, it appeared, was more contagious than anyone had imagined. And it was spreading across the galaxy, one world at a time.